Hello, family, and welcome to the video version of my journal. I'm Stephanie Rivers. Come on in, kings and queens, and welcome to the conversation. I am multicasting on several platforms. I want to thank you for my subscribers. They're growing every week. So, thank you. If you are new to the conversation, I'm sure you are going to like something that's going to keep you coming back. So I want you to share it and like it, share it, and subscribe so that the next time I post new videos, you will be the first to know. And if you are returning, welcome back to the conversation. I'm Stephanie Rivers. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. He and I often talk about real estate, and we often talk about generational wealth. And this friend, he owns two houses in the Dallas, Texas area, and he owns about 5 or 6 acres of land near in a nearby county. And so this friend of mine, we'll call him Bobby, he is about 60 years old and he has two grown sons and he has some siblings who are also his age. So we were talking about real estate as we often do. And he said that he plans to sell one of the houses that he owns in not a neighborhood that is being gentrified. He plans to sell one of that house and take the money and then go live in the other house. A lot of people are coming into neighborhoods, and you probably know this, it might be happening in your city. A lot of developers, mostly white developers with a bunch of big bills, are coming in. They're buying up the houses, buying up the property, tearing down the old houses, building up $1 million houses, flipping them and selling them and taking the money and leaving, gentrifying the neighborhood. And I asked my friend why he wouldn't just keep the house and for his sons and to create a family homestead and to keep that generational wealth, because you know that in Black families, one of the main primary ways that we are better positioned to pass on generational wealth is because of home ownership and the equity that we get by that home ownership and passing it on to our children and our grandchildren. And if you can get the rightful credit for the equity that you built instead of some of these crooked appraisers coming in and undervaluing your home, and as we know, a lot of Black families have had to deal with. If you can get a honest, valuable appraisal for your home, and you can continue to maybe take the money out and or just keep a no mortgage on the home and pass it on to generations after you, why wouldn't you do that, right? So that's what I was talking with Bobby about. And I want to share with you what his reasons were for why he said it was best for him to sell the house, take the money, and live off of it. So we're going to talk about that right after this. Hi, I'm Stephanie Rivers, and I want justice for Breonna Taylor because the police officers involved showed reckless disregard for her life and the lives of her neighbors. I've heard. So you're saying she essentially died on the floor right there?
The second that she got shot, she was.
Family, did the city of Birmingham, did anybody say, did the church, did anybody say there's more to Hey, family, and welcome to the video version of my journal. I'm Steffanie Rivers, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe so when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. So, most of us are familiar with the term gentrification. That's when developers come into a neighborhood, they renovate everything, property taxes rise, and they pretty much price out the residents who've been holding it down for generations in that neighborhood, forcing them out because they can't afford the property taxes. It's happening all over Dallas, Fort Worth, and surrounding counties, and it happened in probably happening in your part of the country, wherever you are. Big cities like Chicago, Harlem, other cities, mostly where Black and brown people live. People with big bills mostly white people. They're coming in to these neighborhoods. They're realizing the value in the land. They're swooping in with the big bills. They're paying people small change for their houses because people are, and you know, that's your right to sell your house. But today we're going to talk about having a long-term vision and what that should look like for you and your family. So they come in and they pay a little bit, they get the land, they get the house, and essentially the people who walk away with a few dollars that might last them a couple of years, but the money that they could have had they had a long-term vision, a long-term plan, is much more than what they gave up. A friend of mine, Bobby, owns two houses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, great neighborhoods. These neighborhoods are being gentrified. People are coming in, developers tearing down the old houses, building up the new houses. And Bobby has decided that he's going to sell to the best bidder his house to one of those developers. And then he's going to take the money and then he's going to use that money to live on because he's retired. He's going to go to the other house where he has renters currently, and he plans to let the lease run out on those renters and then move into that house. And so when I asked him why he doesn't just keep both of the houses and let it pass on from generation to generation for his sons and his grandchildren, or possibly his siblings and their children and grandchildren, he said he wants to do that. He wants to, for his grandchildren to have that house. But unfortunately, Bobby's sons are not going along with the family plan. Here's the problem. So, you know, if you own a home, you have property taxes on that home. Or if you own land, you have property taxes on that land. And if you don't pay the taxes, then the house or the land is going to go back to the county. And so they're going to essentially be able to claim ownership because you didn't follow through on your responsibility as an owner. So neither one of Bobby's sons, according to Bobby, wants to contribute to pay any of the taxes on the land and any of the taxes on the property taxes on the two houses. You know, all they have to do, let's say if it's $2,000. I don't know what it is, but let's just say $2,000 a year property taxes. So, you know, grown individuals, they don't see the long-term benefit of coming up with, you know, let me pay this part and you pay that part and everybody coming together and paying the property taxes because the houses are owned free and clear. So they don't want to do it. And that land, those 5 acres of land that Bobby owns right now, he says that he's growing vegetables on it. And so you know, they are essentially, the land is giving back. And so he, because it's maybe it's long distance for him to drive down to that land, but he has family members who live closer to the land than he does. They don't even want to consistently go over there, get the vegetables and eat the vegetables and or sell the vegetables. They don't want to consistently pay property taxes on the land. So Bobby said, to hell with them. I'm not going to be responsible for all that has to be done to keep up cutting the grass and picking the whatever vegetables and selling it and paying the property taxes. He says, I'm not going to do it. And then I die and they get all the benefit when they should see the long-term benefit. So that's what Bobby says. That's why Bobby says that he is going to just sell the house and get the money and go on about his business. So my question to you is, why are some of us so short-sighted and uncooperative when it comes to doing what's right for our collective bloodline? Why is that? Now, before you say, well, it's not just Black people, Steffanie, it's other people. I know other people do it. But as my mama said, and as your mama said, when you used to tell her what somebody did around the corner, she would say, what they doing around the corner is not my concern. I'm concerned about what you doing. So my concern is for what we are doing collectively in the Black community. Oftentimes we undermine our own progress and our own generational wealth. So that's what we're talking about today. And if you want to comment, you might be watching me on Facebook, or you might be watching me on YouTube. But if you want to comment, let me know what you think about this, because oftentimes, we talk about what other people are doing to undermine our longevity and our generational wealth building, and sometimes it's our fault. There was a documentary on YouTube, and you can go look at that. It's by Alzo Slade. It's a guy who's working through, he did a documentary, but it was on Vice, the Vice network, I think. Alzo, Alzo Slade. And he was talking about the people, family members in Hilton Head, South Carolina. And so if you're not familiar, Hilton Head is one of those areas of the country and of the state where a lot of people go for vacation. And in the early 1900s, the Hilton Head was an island, and it was not connected to the main city, the main municipality. And so a lot of people, white people, they wanted to push the Black people out, so they pushed them over on that island. And there was no bridge over there, and so you had to basically have a boat or something like that to get to the mainland. But then over time, when people started to look at Hilton Head as a resort area, and they wanted to go over, they wanted to experience, and then at that point, people wanted to be near the water. Then the white people were like, oh, we see that's valuable land. Let's build a bridge. Now they got a bridge over there. And then it was a part of developers started to notice people like to swim, people like to have condos near the water, people like to golf near the water. And then that's when there were a lot of developers that started to come in to Hilton Head and develop it as a resort area. And so Alzo Slade's documentary is just talking about how the transition of ownership of Hilton Head was essentially usurped from the families, the Black families that owned it for generations, to now mostly white people owning it. Now, how does that happen? Well, it's essentially a method of divide and conquer. Essentially, let's say a person, man or woman, Black man or woman, they own the land. They own a couple of acres of land. They have 5 or 10 kids. 40 years ago, it wasn't nothing for somebody to have 5 or 10 kids. And so though once that person passed on, they would will their land to their children. So the children then had children of their own, the grandchildren. And so as time goes on, some people want to stay in the area and of South Carolina, let's say. Others want to move on to the big cities of wherever they wanted to move. And so over time, you might have 20 or 30 or 50 people who own a percentage of the land. And so what happens is those people who then own a percentage start to have options to sell their percentage. Well, if it's only one or two people out of 100 that want to sell, that's no big deal because the family still has the majority ownership. But as time goes on, when people started to see these developers and the people in the area, they started to get into agreements with local politicians to try to get the land from the families. And they started coming up with changing the laws on how you could sell property. It no longer, it might have started out being everybody has to sell as a whole, and then it transformed into a percentage. This person can sell his or her percentage, that person can sell his or her percentage, and before you know it, once you start buying up percentages, then these developers, these strangers, these white people with all the big bills end up getting, they own the majority of the land. And so the people, the family members who maybe stayed in the area, maybe might be living on the land, they are outnumbered by the people, the family members who are out of town, living their lives. And before you know it, they turn around and realize, you know what? My family no longer owns the land. This is no longer a family homestead. This is now somebody else's land. And so that's what happens. And that has is what has happened in a lot, excuse me, a lot of the areas of South Carolina, according to this documentary. So go look up that documentary. Um, and it is, that's one of the ways that people, if you don't have a collective family structure and or a collective family plan on what you want to do, what your long-term goals are with the land that your family owns, you could end up owning zero. Okay, because people want to do different things. And I certainly understand, people want to move and people want to experience life and go live somewhere else. And I certainly, I was one of those people. I didn't want to stay in Tennessee. I wanted to move to DC, and then that took me to Dallas, and that took me to, Virginia, and that took me all these different places. But I still understand that I have a responsibility, that if my mother, and I'm pretty sure she will because I'm her only child, leaves me the land and the property, that I will have a plan on what to do with it, even if I don't want to stay in the area. And then, so you got to have a plan. So, a lot of, going back to the story, when you don't have a solid plan or a unified plan, or everybody's not on the same page, you end up losing out in the end, because that's a lot of generational wealth that could be staying in your family, or you could at least have a homestead where everybody can come back to if they need to, or someone in the family needs somewhere, a retreat. Make it a family retreat, even if you want to make money off of it. Excuse me, try to hold that cough for the last minute. But if it's always good to have a plan. And it seems like sometimes family members are worse than enemies. Family members are worse than strangers when it comes to getting along and coming up with a unified plan for the good of the family. And that is that is doing us more harm than good. Some of us, we'd rather be up in New York City and in Chicago, over in Los Angeles, paying high ass rent in a high rise building when we have acres of land back home somewhere else. And I get it. We want to experience different things, but in the end, are you doing what's best just for you at the moment? Because really, we all know this. If you paying rent, you paying somebody else's mortgage. Okay. So you and your family need to make sure that your generational wealth is not given away to somebody else who's now going to take your land, take that property, and make it a mortgage and get some renters in there that's going to pay that mortgage. And so you have to look at the long term. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this quick story about high rent. When I moved to Dallas, let's say, how long ago? It was in '07. So that's 14 years ago, 15 years ago. Wow, time is flying. When I moved to Dallas 15 years ago, I moved to an area of the city that it was up and coming, but rent was cheap over there. I moved into a condo. I was paying about, believe it or not, for let's say $500 a month. 500 a month. I lived in there quite some time, quite some time. The owner lived in California, and he kind of didn't know the value of what he had. He never raised the rent. He never fixed up the condo, none of that. And because it was $500, I'm like, I'm cool. I'm not trying to go anywhere. I'm trying to take care of some other stuff right now. Well, it came a time where the owner said, I want to sell the property. So people started coming to look at it. And I'm like, this man's serious. He about to sell this thing. Let me go see what they're paying for rent in other communities, other apartments, other condos, how much they charging. Do you know, because I'm an Uber driver, so I would ask people when I'm dropping them off, how much are you paying for rent over in this area? Do you know those people told me they're paying $1,200 a month across the street from me, up the street from me, $1,200, and I'm paying $500 and been paying it for years? I'm like, oh, I can't do it. I just was not going to let myself do it. So I told the guy, I'll buy the property from you. I got the best deal ever. Do you know, within 6 months of me purchasing that, people were selling their homes, their condos in the same community for over $100,000. More than that. I'm just being conservative, okay? Over $100,000 for a condo in the same complex where I paid $75,000. And I'm like, God, you've been good to me. I've been paying $500 a month, didn't even realize it. People paying $1,200 a month in rent where you've been paying $500, and now you just bought this thing and it's got equity in it. So yeah, sometimes you don't know how good you have it, and you have to have a plan. So now I've got a plan, and I've got a plan for that place, and I've got plans for my homestead in Tennessee. And so I just want to say that in the end, guys and girls and kings and queens, we need to think about future generations and not just about short-term satisfaction. And I would I would urge you that if if your relatives, if your people, your mom, your daddy, your grandparents keep talking about, oh, we've got this acre of land or we got this couple of acres of land, even if it's not developed, go and pay attention to what's going on, because people are looking, because like the old saying goes, there ain't making no more land. So if you own some, you need to get it and take care of it and do something with it besides just let somebody else benefit from it. And so that's all I want to share with you today. And if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you will be the first to know. Thank you so much, and you have a super day.